Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here in Veterans Park, Redondo Beach, California. Today I'm speaking to veteran Michael Hobbs, Corporal Michael Hobbs, Vietnam veteran and former Navy man. And we're just speaking about his journey before and after the war, how he's dealt with the trauma, his downs and his ups, and just life in general. The war was tough, and in such a hot climate, who better to talk to than a man who's seen it all? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Walk With Me, and we're speaking to Michael Hobbs today. Thank you.
Starts as a 14-year-old seeing a regime change get started in Vietnam. It was called the domino theory. If one country fell to communism, another country would fall. And that was the psychological reasoning that was portrayed.
Domino theory, coined by US President Eisenhower. Basically, it was an excuse that they used to be able to join the Vietnamese conflict that had nothing to do with America. It was the race against communism, the fight against Russia, the Cold War, and America needed to liberate and spread capitalism and justice to Southeast Asia that they felt was weak and would fall to communism like a bunch of dominoes. The war did nothing but bring pain and suffering, but that's a whole different story for a different day. It was rooted in xenophobia and racism.
When I finished with my military, I went back to college at the age 48. I took history lessons. I wanted to know why me, growing up in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Chattanooga, I went to school in Chattanooga.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why me, growing up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, get sent to the other side of the world to fight against the Vietnamese when I find out that that wasn't what was really going on. Vietnam was a French colony. They wanted to be free and independent. Ho Chi Minh went and asked, I think it was Calvin Coolidge at the end of World War I, please recognize Vietnam as a free and independent country. And instead of doing that, Treaty of Versailles was in France. Calvin Coolidge wasn't going to stand in France saying, okay, you're not a colony anymore. So Ho Chi Minh said, okay, I know what to do. And he went back and went to war with the French. In 1954, the French were kicked out. The country was divided in the South and the North. South was free enterprise, what we're used to, and the North was communism. They framed it for our generation as we were fighting communism, we were fighting the domino. When I look back on it now and know what I know, it was 1% of the people in South Vietnam owned everything. So 99% of the people just wanted a chance to have a life. We were helping the 1% and not knowing, thinking we were helping. We're helping. I look back on it now and all that effort, it was actually a regime change like going on right now in our world today. And I was a 14-year-old. I was in 7th grade. As the year President Kennedy was assassinated.
Yeah.
Then watched Jack Ruby execute Lee Harvey Oswald on live TV. So there I am, 14 years old, son of a World War II Army veteran, watching war movies all my young childhood. Fighting the enemy is what you did as an American. Your dad did it, John Wayne did it, and I graduated from high school. I knew I was going to be drafted. I just knew I was. So 2 weeks after I graduated, I went down and joined the Marine Corps. That day that I got back from taking a physical, I had the draft letter in my mailbox. I was being drafted.
How does that work? You get drafted regardless of if you enlist or not?
No, back then they had a thing called the draft. You had to register. Say you graduate high school. You weren't going to go to college. You weren't admitted into college. And you were healthy. And you hadn't got in trouble with the police. You had a draft card. You were subject to being drafted. Back in those days, if you were out of high school and over 18 and the police stopped you, if you didn't have a draft card to show them, you went to jail because you were avoiding the draft.
Okay.
So it was a very important thing. And In the Vietnam War, protesters would hold draft card burning displays. I wasn't the draft card burner. I was we're gonna go liberate. We're gonna teach them how to vote. We're gonna teach them all this stuff. That was me as a high school graduate and not knowing any better and listening to what we were being told. Now I look back on it as a 76-year-old educated man. And up to that point, we were being told, oh, the war's almost over. No, it's not almost over. I'm going to wars. That's what I could see as a senior in high school. That was part of the curriculum. We had to study current events, subscribe to Newsweek magazine, and read what was going on every week. We thought we knew what was going on. We knew what was being printed. Turns out that I feel like the whole generation was duped.
Yeah.
The war, Vietnam, was on the TV every night. Attacks were coming from everywhere in every direction, everywhere all at once. Saigon, the embassy there, was being attacked. The 10th Offensive was timed with a religious holiday in Vietnam.
The Tet Offensive, beginning in January 1968, the significance was this was Lunar New Year for the Vietnamese people, and they agreed on a temporary ceasefire. But the North Vietnamese and VC wasn't actually about it, and what had happened was they used this to launch a massive attack in over 100 cities in South Vietnam. The US and the South Vietnamese were definitely not expecting this, and this was a turning point in the war because a lot of their troops and bases got mashed up, you see me? They got beat up. And yeah, that was the Tet Offensive.
In my young man bravado, I went and joined the Marine Corps. I wanted to be in an elite unit, so I volunteered for recon. I served in Vietnam in First Force Reconnaissance. Commanding General wants to know what's going on over there in that part of the jungle. He sends us, 7-man teams, be dropped off in a helicopter to sneak around, not necessarily engage, report back, take pictures, come back and tell them what we saw. Sometimes it's to engage, but we were always numerically outnumbered. So that's something you just don't go pick a fight when there's 7 of you and 200 of them. A year of doing that, one of the significant situations was when First Force Recon decided that they were going to take the unit back to the United States. I had about 6 months in country. You're supposed to be in country. In country means in Vietnam for 12 months. So I was halfway done through my tour. But they came up with a date and said, if you got here before that date, you could go home. Well, I got there before that date, but they chose me to stay.
Why?
Exactly. And I had a little bit of an attitude. But on August the 4th of 1970, I was in a battle and I didn't die. So it's my alive day. My friend who I was in a fighting hole with, he didn't survive. We were on a radio relay site, and it was the last big mission that First Force Recon was going to do. All the teams went into this mountaintop, and then they walked out to do recon, and a few of us stayed back on top of the mountain to provide a radio relay site. It wasn't like now where you could cell phone, you can talk around the world. A radio only would reach so far. So we were on the mountaintop with a big antenna. The recon teams would radio to us, and then we radio to the command. But during the day, August the 3rd, they came around and said, we're probably going to get hit tonight. Dig in. So Bill Clark and I were assigned to a listening post, which is about 50 yards in front of everybody. And we were told, eyes and ears, if somebody's sneaking up, we'll hear it before everybody else does. So that night, he chose first watch, and I was sleeping about 50 and 25 yards back. When it came time to change places, I went to where he was and started to hear movement, started to hear things that weren't animals, started to hear enemy attack. And the first shot that was fired, I threw a tear gas grenade. I wanted to make sure it wasn't an animal. I wanted to make sure it was actually the enemy that was coming after him. It was the enemy. The first thing they did was shot an RPG, rifle-propelled grenade. It hit Clark exactly where I'd been laying 20 minutes before. There was nothing left of Clark. His head is all that we found the next day. Some other body parts, but instantly killed. So that's why August the 4th is my allotted day. So what had happened the night before, he had told me that he was going to go back and that he was married. His wife was pregnant. I told him, look, I'm really glad you're going back. I met the cutoff, but if it was between me and you, I want you to go back. I'm glad that you're the one going back. Then at 1:20, he was no more. For 22 years, every August the 4th, I would wonder, how's Clark's family? Is his wife getting the death indemnity compensation that she's entitled to? I wondered and I wondered. That was 1970. Now we're in 1992, 22 years later. I decided I want to reach out to one of my recon friends. And the first thing that he says to me when I get him on the phone, hey, did you know you're in a book? And I said, book? He said, yeah. Operation reports, the battle from August the 4th. I got a copy of the book. Sure enough, it has Clark listed as the last force recon Marine killed in Vietnam, a description of the battle. So I called the author and asked him, how do I get in touch with his family? This is 1992. There was no Google. There was long distance information, but that's about all you got. Well, the corpsman that was attached to your unit is now a Marine in San Diego, and he was writing a book about our time. I got his phone number from the author. The last four of that phone number was 1970, the year that we were in Vietnam. Numbers mean a lot to me. Meeting you on 3/3.
Yeah.
Meant a lot to me.
Definitely.
It was 3/3 at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And so all those numbers mean a lot. And you'll understand a little later.
Michael, how do you think 60s and 70s America mirrors today?
Oh, there's a lot of similarities, but on the other hand, there's a lot of differences. Growing up in the 60s, peace, love, and happiness was a motto of a few, and then there were the Hawks and the Doves. The Hawks wanted to go to war and go to Vietnam, and the Doves didn't want to do anything with that. As a child of a World War II veteran and watching all those war movies, the choice wasn't even a choice. It was, if you're an American, you're going to stand up, you're going to fight against communism, you're going to do the right thing. I have a completely different outlook on life now as a 76-year-old man. When I look at people who dodged the draft, I don't hate them if it was a conscious decision that they didn't want to take a human life, which I wish I had made that conscious decision. Muhammad Ali made his stand. He wasn't going to fight in that war. I respect that. I don't really want to get political and name other people who got deferment after deferment, and just because they were afraid. It wasn't a moral standard. It was they couldn't be bothered to do something like that. When all of America was being, if you didn't have a draft card and you weren't doing the right thing, you were going to go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So we could go to school in Chattanooga.
I went to Macaulay. You know Macaulay?
Oh my God, yes I do.
Did you?
Yes I do.
You did?
No, I didn't go. No. I just knew people. My nephew went to Baylor.
Yeah.
Competition.
Yeah.
My sister dated Macaulay guys. And John Meacham was a Macaulay guy.
Uh-huh.
So I know Macaulay.
Connected.
You got a proper education.
Yes, sir. If you don't mind me asking, like, how did it feel to take a life?
Okay, that's good. That's a good point. Growing up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, as a Christian child raised in the Methodist Church, we were taught the Ten Commandments, and thou shalt not kill is right up there. And then I joined the Marine Corps. brainwashing from day one. I'm going to give you an example. When you're standing at attention at boot camp and they tell you parade rest, go to parade rest, and you scream at the top of your lungs, kill VC. Every time. You're brainwashed. Kill VC. So you're brainwashed to take the life of your enemy before your enemy takes your life. So that when you're actually in a combat situation and you're actually kill or be killed, it's exhilarating. You get to live. But when you reflect on it and you come back to the States and you remember, oh, you're not supposed to kill people. Why in the hell did I go to Vietnam to kill people? Political reasons? They didn't come here. We went there for political reasons. How could that be okay when at the time it was what I was supposed to do and it kept me alive? And I never killed anybody that wasn't trying to kill me. I was always in a combat situation. It was always a firefight. It was always them or me. It was never taking a life just to take a life. I was the winner of that combat situation. I struggled with it for years. I had PTSD before they knew what PTSD was. In 1975, when my son was born, this mathematical equation is going to sound really silly, but in my head, before God, I took a life, I made a life. Is that going to help anything? It gave me some peace. I was sure I was going to go to hell as soon as I die because of the combat situations that I was in. I am much easier on myself nowadays. I had to go get treatment for PTSD. The thing about PTSD is this. You're taught that if you have to take action, it has to be decisive action. It has to be, there are no other choices but to prevail, and you think it's a fatal situation all the time. You think it's life and death. It could just be somebody pissing you off in traffic, and you go from being a calm person to ready to kill. And that's what PTSD is. There's no button in between of, oh, you're just upset. It's not a life and death situation. But when you've been brainwashed to think that way, it's nothing I'm proud of. I can tell you that. My wife, she knows how to handle me. I am much better than I was, and the VA helped with that. I got treatment. It took me 40 years to ask for help. So raising my children, I was not a go along, get along kind of guy. It was either right or it was wrong, and there is no gray. It's either black or it was white. There's no gray. And so I'm living my life now that everything's not life or death. Everything's not right or wrong. There are gray areas. It changed my life to be able to let go of that cortisol rush. It actually changed my appearance. Before and after pictures, before getting treatment and after treatment, you think I'm a different person.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good. We were told the U.S. wouldn't be able to get the natural resources that they were needing, and we would be adrift in an island up by ourselves, is the doctrine that was sold to us. Turns out the U.S. just didn't like the guy that was president. And here's a wild connection. November the 2nd of 1963, they did a coup d'etat and killed the president. It was the South Vietnamese generals that did not like the president. And they cleared it through the U.S. government that if they overthrew him, U.S. would still give them financial backing after the coup. Wrap your mind around that for a minute.
So when you learned all of this, did it ever like breed hate for the superiors and the people in control?
Yes. After August the 4th of 1970, I was angry. I was numb. I was disillusioned because the mission that we were on that day was a mission that is not typical of a recon Marine. Recon Marines go in, they check things out, they report. They're always in a situation where they're going to be outnumbered. So it's very important that have support to be pulled out by helicopters, while we usually did. And instead of pulling us out from that mountaintop, when we knew we were going to be attacked, they left us there. And while Clark and I were digging our fighting hole, the whole time we were digging it that day, we were telling each other, hey, Force Recon Marines don't dig in. They don't wear helmets. They don't wear flak jackets. They get pulled out. I don't know why we're having to do this.
A lot of deception.
So then, 1:20 that night, we get hit. Our command knew we were going to get hit and just left us there until we did get hit. All the missions of the recon teams that had gone off the mountaintop that day, they were gone. They made contact. They were pulled out by helicopter. For some reason, the decision was made not to pull us out. So I was angry about that because I'm talking to Clark about him going back and being with his family, and then he's not with us anymore. Going back to the Clark, I actually was able to contact him. What happened was a general that was managing a scholarship got an application from Clark's son, William Clark Jr., and he wanted to know about his dad, so he called Doc Norton, who was writing the book about the battle that he was killed in, got the phone number for Clark, the son. Mm-hmm. Doc Norton, Major Norton, said, look, I'll give you Hobbs' phone number. He did call. And the first thing he asked was, what was my dad like? He was a good man. He didn't go looking for trouble, but he would not run from a fight. We had talked that night right before the battle about him coming home. And I wanted to know if his mother was receiving the death indemnity compensation from the VA that she's entitled to. This is 22 years later. He said, no, she's not. So I told him how to go to the VA and apply for it. 2 weeks later, he calls and said, yes, you're right, she's approved. It's going to make a big difference in our life to be able to get that support. Like I said, it's not a happy ending, but it's a proper ending. And just give respect to the lives lost. I believe it's 58,000 Vietnam casualties. I think that's how many are on the wall. The wall in Washington, D.C. I went there in last October and saw his name. It was very moving. While I was standing there, it was almost like this. You had not any trees around that you see, but as I was doing the etching, 2 leaves fell. Just right there. Would you be weirded out if 2 leaves fell here? It weirded me out, and it's a sign.
It's so nice to
it's
all around.
Yeah, it was a nice touch.
Did you ever go back to Vietnam?
No. My wife of 50 years passed away. There's a reason I'm telling you this. My wife of 50 years passed away the day before Thanksgiving 2022. At 73, I became a widower. I came to Venice Beach on a dare, fell in love with Venice Beach, met a woman on Bumble. I was on Bumble for 1 day. She's been to Vietnam.
Okay.
She used to travel a lot with her late husband. It's really a wild story. I'd like to tell you about it.
Good.
My wife, though, died of amyloidosis of the heart. Her husband died of the same rare disease. I was a caretaker for 3 years while she was leaving. I went on a blind date in Miami, Florida. And the lady in the parking lot I met when I was having problems with my parking. Told her why I was there, and she said, well, I'm married, but I have a friend in Hollywood I want you to meet. And she wouldn't leave it alone. For 2 weeks, she was texting, what's your hobbies? What do you like to do? And I responded, and she said, well, come meet her. I'm going out for a week. Just buy a round-trip ticket. I bought a round-trip ticket. I went to Venice Beach. I said I love Venice Beach. I went back and got my car, and I moved to Venice Beach. Got a nice bachelor pad, got only furniture. My son visits and says, Dad, if you want to meet somebody, you need to be on Bumble. When I was there for my week, Airbnb said, why don't you go get a photo shoot on Rodeo Drive? So I did. I used those pictures on Rodeo Drive on my Bumble. I was on Bumble for 1 day. She swiped right.
The same lady.
My wife.
Your wife.
We got together, saw face to face, and within 30 minutes, we were holding hands across the counter, reciting the Invictus poem in unison while staring in each other's eyes. That's powerful. No matter how straight the gate or how charged with punishment the scroll, I am the master of my fate, and I am the captain of my soul. And that's the way we started.
No accidents.
No accident.
No accidents.
The numbers thing. I was on Venice Beach on 4/20 of 2023. 4/20, I don't know if that means anything to you. I retired from the Navy on February the 29th of 1992. I retired from working on February the 3rd of 2023. I met that lady in the parking lot on February 23rd of 2023. We're still friends. Dates, for some reason, mean a lot to me. August 29th, my birthday, 1949. I saw a display in a museum where they were interviewing Civil War veterans on my birthday, the day I was born.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened the day I was born is Russia tested their first atomic bomb. The day I was born. August the 4th, 1970 was President Obama's 11th birthday. Dates seem to be talking to me. Probably sound a little crazy. When you made this appointment for 3 at 3 o'clock on 26, I just felt like it was the way it's supposed to be.
Thank you.
Macaulay?
Yes. No, what are the odds? It's crazy.
Yes.
I was reading that to deal with it, a lot of veterans experiment with mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms.
I had not the psychedelic. I smoked marijuana for a little while after it became legal. I had to get a medical card. But then when I met my wife, I just haven't done that anymore. One of the things that has really soothed my soul, when you're with the person that you need to be with, you're at such at ease, and you go to sleep so easily, and you don't lie awake. On day 4, she told me she loved me. Day 5, I asked her to marry me. I said, I want you to have the memory of me getting down on one knee in a public place. And she said, be here tomorrow at noon. I know where we're going. I know what we're going to do. So when I showed up, we're walking out the door of the house we live in, down the steps. She says, Michael, I didn't have time to get you a key, but I have a lockbox. She told me the combination. And I almost fainted right there on the steps. It's the same PIN number my late wife had for all of her banking.
Are you serious?
And it's because it's the birth year of our son and our daughter. So after I got over that,
yeah,
she said, well, you want to know why it's mine? Yeah. It was her late husband's last 4 of the Social Security number. Wrap your mind around that. So then we go to have lunch, and the server walks up and says, "Hi, my name's Destiny. How can I help you?" Wow. All that happened one day. Right after my late wife passed, I got tatted up a little bit. And the first picture on my profile she responded to, I got a big eagle here. She says, "Hey, were you in the Marine Corps?" My dad was in the Marine Corps. My brother was in the Marine Corps. Well, it just so happens I was in the Marine Corps. And that started the conversation. Divine guidance, there's forces in the universe we know nothing about. There's been a strong force that kept me alive. There was one particular firefight. It was a 6-day mission just to snoop around and see what we could find. So we stopped for lunch. I'm away from everybody.
How was the food over there?
Oh, sea rations, those cans.
Oh.
To keep people from finding where you were, you take your big K-bar knife, make a little hole to put your food wrappers in. I had just done that, and I looked up, and there was a Viet Cong standing there with the AK-47, as close as the cameraman there, with nothing in between us. And I just froze. I didn't move, because he had the sun in his face, not unlike this, and I think he had sweat in his eyes, and he couldn't see me. He took another step, and the whole recon team opened up on him. Damn. I mean, he had me dead to rights. That particular instance played over in my head and over and over and over. Something's keeping me alive. I thought I was invisible for a short time. You can't see me. When I was a kid, I thought I was invisible because I'd go into the drugstore and nobody'd say hi. They'd even acknowledge I'd be there, so I had to be invisible.
You have any advice for, I guess, like the younger people looking for a purpose?
Your purpose will find you. I thought my purpose was to be as a liberator and bring American values. Turns out that I wasn't that guy, and I feel duped. I know this. Love is the key to everything. If you don't love something, you shouldn't follow it. When my wife told me she loved me, it just changed everything. And we'd only known each other for 4 days. And it's otherworldly. Jesus' only commandment was to love one another. This love is more important than anything.
Thank you. How were you guys received when you came back? Did they show a lot of love on return?
No. There was, you had your hawks and your doves, and your doves for the Vietnam protesters. Who my first wife of 50 years was a protester. She wanted to stop the war, and she was doing it on a basis of, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. And I didn't disagree with her. When I joined the Navy, and she was a Navy wife for my career, she was supportive. She just wasn't supportive of the war. And when I got back, there was not a real warm welcome. It was baby killer. I didn't get that much, but it wasn't a hero's welcome, I can tell you that. It wasn't the appreciation or respect that it was given after the 9/11 era of service members. You either a hawk or a dove. Turns out that there was a lot of money to be made to support the Vietnam War for certain individuals. But I did feel duped right out of high school, thinking that I was doing the right thing.
Is there any point in war or any real winners, you think?
No, there's no winners in war. I will tell you this. Can I quote Clark's engraving on his, he had a cigarette lighter, Zippo. It said, "Fighting for peace is like fucking for virginity."
Let's see. That's a bar. R.I.P. Clark.
He was a good man and very young. Like I said, he didn't look for a fight, but he didn't run from one either. He didn't get to grow old with the sun.
Did you ever feel like, I'm sure there's a bit of remorse that you made it back and some of your friends didn't. What
Yeah, there was survivor guilt.
was there any gratitude that you made it back though?
Yeah. I had survivor guilt because Clark and I had just changed positions. If I had taken the first watch, I would have been the one laying there getting hit by the RPG. So I had survivor guilt for quite a long time. It was only eased when I found out. I got in touch with his family and got the benefits that they were entitled to.
So that helped you. And I know, well, I don't know, but I've heard stories about over there, like there's a lot of, drinking, smoking, and amongst other things. Was the substance abuse over there big?
Well, in my case, being a Force Recon Marine, we were held to a higher standard.
Mm.
Now, we could buy a can of beer for 10 cents.
Wow, really?
Yes. And it was called military payment currency. It was little pieces of paper that looked like Monopoly money. And when we were not on patrol in our compound, they had a little enlisted men's club, and you could go there and drink a beer at a time. So the substance abuse in me was just drinking too much beer. But there were units that there was some marijuana smoking going on, but it wasn't anywhere around me. If you were on patrol and lit up the cigarette, you would never go on patrol again.
Really?
You would not be allowed to go back. They would excommunicate you from the team because you give away your position.
Makes sense.
And you give away your position, you're giving everybody's position away. So you had to control that kind of thing.
What was the most, I guess, accurate fictional depiction that you know of?
Okay. Full Metal Jacket was a very good depiction of what boot camp was like. And Platoon was, there were some crazy guys in there that were doing things that were just not right. The reason I wanted to be in Force Recon is we consider ourselves an elite force that did the right thing, whether somebody was watching you or not. You didn't have to be monitored. You held yourself to a higher standard. So that's the people that I was around. And next to us was the Republic of Korea Marines. And they were all experts in some sort of kung fu. And whenever their bosses came, and they would all go out and start doing push-ups. They were just very focused.
You remember any? You said there were some crazy guys in the platoon. And so, you remember anybody that really stuck out like a character?
Yeah. I think they called him Thumper. If I remember right, he had a tattoo of a rabbit. If I remember right, he did things. If I remember right, it showed him killing civilians for no reason. If I remember, I only saw the movie once, and I turned away in disgust. That kind of depiction, I'm sure it happened. It just didn't happen around me.
Did you have a crazy nickname?
Abu. Abu is a snake that's supposed to be very, very lethal.
Yeah, I don't know too. Thank you. In terms of, I guess, the future of America, what do you have to say about that and like where we are right now?
We're in a crossroads right now. If you want to send Americans in harm's way, be man enough to stand up and say, this is what we're going to do and this is why we're going to do it. I hate the way the media builds narratives. Just be straightforward. If it's going to be about the oil, say it's about the oil. If it's going to be about the resources, say it's about the resources. Instead of doing false narratives and duping. Yeah, we can blow stuff up. We can do all that, but should we? As the Bible said, live by the sword, die by the sword. My philosophy is peace, love, and happiness.
Wicked. Look at that. When did you get that?
Right after the wife died, and then after our coincidence was 7583, and then I got this: buy the ticket, take the ride. It's a Hunter S. Thompson quote: if there's something you want to do in your life, do it. I wanted to meet somebody. I bought a ticket to L.A.
Oh, yeah.
and I took the ride.
Let's go.
I got one more. So this is my son's arc. The eagle actually has tentacles. The philosophy is, hold your baby's breath.
So just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. I guess as humans, we have this thing where we focus on the negative naturally.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself from that spiraling?
That is the
Going
best
into dark.
question I've had in a long time. 3 years ago,
Okay.
I saw a quote by none other than Keanu Reeves. Go for a day without complaining. See how it changes your life. I was racked with cortisol from having nothing but negative thoughts for years. I took that philosophy. I stopped complaining and do not allow myself to have negative thoughts. I will not let my brain go down that path. If I start having negative thoughts, I imagine putting on the brakes and saying no.
What can you say about not giving up on yourself?
You're your only hope. You're the only one that can pull yourself out of it. Nobody can do it for you. Nobody's coming for you. Nobody's coming to save you. You have to decide to save yourself. Checking the bridges for bombs and the rivers around Da Nang. There's more than that water than silt. There is Agent Orange in that water.
Agent Orange, powerful chemical warfare, banned by the UN after the Vietnamese War, developed by the United States military to use against the Vietnamese people and their crops and forests. It is fucking horrible. It's terrible for people, and it caused cancer, birth defects, long-term illnesses in both the Vietnamese and the veterans. It was atrocious. Chemical warfare shouldn't even be a thing, but that's what Agent Orange is.
So I'm still dealing with Agent Orange.
In what ways? Like lungs?
Heart.
Heart.
It attributed to my ischemic heart disease, and I'm in constant AFib. I never go out of AFib.
What's that?
Atrial fibrillation, that's where your heart's supposed to do like ding-doo, ding-doo, ding-doo. Well, the atrial side is just doing this, so it's not coordinated. It's possible, if nothing else kills me between me and my termination date, which nobody knows, Allison will get benefits just like I was killed in action. It was from exposure of Agent Orange. It's just taken 50 years to do it.
You seem like you live life to the fullest. You seem like you live by your beat, right? And to the people who are scared to live life, or afraid of whatever BS that they have going on, what can you tell them to help them?
You can't control what other people do, but you can control what you do.
I've been saying that. During my meditations, I cannot control the uncontrollable. I can only control my skill set.
Yes, and you don't need to worry about things that are out of your control. Things that you can control, then you should. I'd rather give myself a countdown before I respond to something that would have triggered me before.
Thank you. Don't act out of anger.
Right. I was driving cross country 1983, going to my first recruiting position, which was Thousand Oaks. Stopped at Fort Smith, Arkansas, and pulled into the parking lot. There was a African-American male walking around the parking lot, looking bored, wearing an army shirt, army boots, army hat. I go into the motel laundry room, there's the guy. I say, hey, you in the Army? I'm in the Navy. I'm going to recruiting in Thousand Oaks. He says, actually, I'm an actor.
Oh.
It was Denzel Washington.
Wicked.
He was making Soldier Story, his first movie. And he was telling me about how fortunate it was that he got time off from St. Elsewhere. And it was the most pleasant, low-key conversation sitting there while his clothes were in the washing machine right before mine went in. And then he waited for his clothes to dry, too. He didn't trust me, I guess. Got to keep an eye on him. So I always have that wonderful memory of, I almost asked him, I almost said, well, I need an autograph because one day you're going to be somebody. You're going to be somebody. And I didn't. So you're going to have to give me an autograph.
Yeah, we're going to meet him. We'll see. Hey, Denzel, remember this guy?
Yeah.
Arkansas.
I bet he does.
I bet he does.
I bet he does.
He was very sharp.
Well, not only that, it was his first movie. It was the first time somebody called him out, I guess. You in the Army? Actually, I'm an actor. And he was telling me, oh, I'd never buy a house there in L.A. They're just too expensive. He's got the biggest house out there.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
Any last sentiments to the people?
Well, love is the answer, is all I'd say. It changes everything. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Big up Michael. Big up yourself. This is Jamaica. I'm from Jamaica.
I went to Ocho Rios.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was good. I did the Dunn River.
Dunn's River, yeah.
And you have to walk.
You have to be careful. It's very